Are you ready?
We got to get into it. We got to get into
Woo, boy.
Welcome to silly season, folks.
Silly season is in session. We just started July, and we are here, and boy, is it hotter than ever.
Yeah. I mean, let's start off with a big one. We got to talk about the Max and Mercedes rumors. I woke up this morning, didn't want to get out of bed, but then I saw Twitter. F1 Twitter was going on.
I mean, that's always a great thing.
When you wake up and you see that everybody on Twitter is like, yo, George Russell's not going to be a Mercedes next year. You're like, yo, is this confirmed? And it isn't. But there is a lot of speculation about advanced talks between Max Verstappen and Mercedes that are going on to potentially start as soon as next year. And yes, I am wearing this Max Verstappen hoodie on purpose today. Look, waking up, the speculation was heating up big time. Reports from Sky Sports Italy that Mercedes, again, Max Verstappen, advanced talks, unconfirmed. My question is this all just smoke? Possibly, and in my honest opinion, probably. We may differ on this, but I want to break down kind of every level of this speculation and does it make sense for either driver to have this decision happen? Does it make sense for Kimi? And I've said this before, I was going to be surprised if George Russell didn't have a contract by the British Grand Prix. That looks a lot more likely than it did prior. I had a conspiracy that they were holding off to announce it this upcoming weekend.
They started talking with George, because I remember after you said that we had saw a report that George and Mercedes were kind of talking about contract extensions, and then
but the loom
kind of
Max
died.
Verstappen in the background.
I also saw a report that in F1's hard to keep up with because there's so many different sources.
You have a rumor a day.
You really do. But I saw a report that George kind of turned down Mercedes' initial offer, so there might be something to look into as far as that goes. But yes, that was Mercedes and George is going to have this thing locked up by Silverstone.
That was, my initial hope. But it looks like things are just going to continue as far as negotiations are concerned. I want to start with this question. Should Mercedes stick with George?
I'm going to answer your question with a question to you being the Mercedes man. Do you want Kimi Antonelli to be driver number one, or do you want to experience what Kimi Antonelli can do as a second driver, or possibly two number two drivers or two number one drivers? Liken it to a Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri situation.
I think that it's kind of I'm trying to make sure I understand your question.
Okay, my question to you is...
You think you're asking me, do I want to see Kimi be the driver one, possibly if George stays, or is he a proverbial two with Max?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
I think
that personally, I like the lineup they've got. I guess I can be kind of blunt there. I was going to try to play this out as a reveal, but you've cornered me. I like the idea of what they have right now. I like that. I like the lineup from a long-term perspective and a short-term perspective. I think that if you decide to go with George, and it's a safe bet, you have a guy who can win races for you, has shown he can win races for you. Is he the number one best driver on the grid? No. But are there a lot of drivers better than him? Also, no.
Yeah, no, you can't say that.
As far as right now, he's a guy who wants to be in Mercedes. He's a guy who has invested his entire career, and Mercedes likewise have invested back into his career. This is stability. This is going to be a championship level driver if the car's slam dunk great next year. Same thing for Kimi Antonelli. If you're grooming him to be a potential future world champion, this is the guy who's going to lead your team forward. Having George Russell as his teammate, as somebody who you can maybe catch, right? Like that's somebody that it can really become a competition, similar to how Oscar Piastri caught Lando Norris and is now leading the World Drivers' Championship just into his third year. Mm-hmm. The sky's the limit for Kimi. Personally, I think the best bet and the safe bet and the likely bet is that they're just going to stick with what they've got. Toto has said this going back months that they're happy with the driver lineup they have. You're not going to not entertain Max Verstappen. Hell, even George Russell said that, look, if Max was available, I can't blame Mercedes for talking to him. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense not to. Everybody wants Max.
I want to say
if Max was a free agent right now, I could guarantee you that Ferrari would somehow be in talks.
I would think every team outside of McLaren would probably talk to Max Verstappen.
Yeah, but could you even blame McLaren if they were like, we talked to him?
Just talk to him.
Yeah.
Because I get
So
what you're
look-
saying. Silly season's crazy, but and it's wild because for the longest time we learned in Drive to Survive as well that Lewis had a verbal agreement with Toto is like, hey, unless I'm talking to other teams, you are not to talk to Red Bull about Max. So he never did. Now they're not in that situation anymore. My issue with it is George has done literally everything he has been asked of him in his first year being the number one driver.
Mm-hmm.
How are you supposed to tell someone, hey, we have these expectations for you, we need you to meet them? They meet those expectations, and then they're like, yeah, but you're just not exactly what we're looking for.
I don't think that's even true. I think that they're still very happy with George, and part of this is also contracts.
I think it's just because it's Max.
It's literally just Max. And Toto's obviously voiced his relationship with Max and the way that he feels about Max, and the entire grid has really just voiced how good Max is.
Mm-hmm. We know.
You have a guy, we talked about this a little bit off air, but you were 100% correct. And like, this is a guy who's possibly the Mount Rushmore of all-time greats for Formula One. Like, there are not many drivers I'd probably pick ahead of him beyond maybe Senna and Schumacher. You could debate even Lewis.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, when you have an all-time talent like this who might become available and might become a part of your team and you feel like, hey, we can win some freaking championships starting in 2026. If you get the best driver and the best car and the best engine, like that is those are the three things you need to win championships. Yeah. I can't blame Mercedes right in the conversations.
Yeah.
As far as George is concerned, I also don't blame him. Martin Brundle talked about this in an interview with Sky Sports that, George has had conversations with other teams. But what other teams are there really right now? This is where the contract side of this comes into play. The leverage is really all in Mercedes' favor right now. Yeah. Because if Max wants to come to Mercedes, they can make the decision if they want him or not, right? If the number makes sense, right? If the infrastructure is there, they can say yes or no. And for George, you don't have another shot at winning a world championship. Ferrari are not open. McLaren are not open. Red Bull obviously are probably not going to be a championship level unit starting in 2026. You've got 3 options, maybe 4, but you're taking a gamble at Aston Martin, which Aston Martin is basically the only other place. And you have to hope that Lawrence Stroll doesn't get, his feelings attached so much to his son and really does want to win. Aston Martin's the only other destination available. Alpine, they're going to be a customer starting next year. They have no idea exactly what they're getting with this Mercedes power unit. All we know is from speculation that it's going to be the best engine to start this next reg with. But being the works team with Mercedes, that's the advantage. You know everything about that engine. You know how the aerodynamics work. You know exactly how to tailor your car to it. So as far as this conversation is concerned, there are a lot of different ways to look at it. The first question being, should Mercedes stick with George? I think yes. Let's say Mercedes go, what if we want to pair Max with George? Should they drop Kimi? I wanted to ask that question.
I'm actually shocked that you could even get those words out of your mouth.
But you have to think about it from all the angles. The other angle being, well, you don't want to drop George because he's a race-winning driver. You've put all this into him.
Would you have to drop Kimi, or could you just make him a reserve?
You could put him in a reserve role, but like, you're going to have both Max and George for long-term contracts. Mm-hmm. So Kimi is going to leave if that ends up being the move. Personally, I disagree with it because Kimi's your golden boy. This is the guy you've had since he was 11 years old and karting. Now and you have literally built him into an F1 driver at 18. You feel like this is the face of your franchise.
Let me ask you a question though. Because you kind of already talked about it earlier when we were talking about the midfield about Isaac Hadjar being the best rookie this year. And I know that's everything due to expectation versus what has happened. Mm-hmm. Though Kimi has had moments where he's looked great, he has not burst onto the scene as we might have hoped.
I think I disagree with that.
So would you?
I mean, a sprint pole in Miami is massive, and a podium in Canada is also massive. With the car that he's driving, he's already exceeded my expectations.
Okay, so then I guess my answer would be kind of redundant, but I guess my question is maybe Kimi isn't ready, and you go through and you do sign Max with George.
Realistically, as far as the Max and George tandem, I don't think it works.
Oh, I mean,
I really don't
they
think it
literally
works.
hate they hate each other.
I mean, like they
so-
just don't play well. They don't play well as rivals. You think
Yeah.
they play well like sitting across the garage from each
Yeah.
other? No, they're not gonna work it
they
all
don't eat
together.
dinner together.
Like,
I mean, for crying out loud, we're
this-
gonna put them on
like-
a team
Like
together.
we talked about Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly like not working well. We got to see all that on full display in Drive to Survive. I mean, if George and Max were teammates, it'd be weekly. Hey guys, let's stop fist fighting in the parking lot.
It's like, hey guys, we get it. Like
one of us is a father.
we
We are
get
too
it.
old to be doing.
we
these
get it.
things.
P3 is really important, but I need y'all to quit wrecking into each other.
But is Kimi not ready? No, I think he is 100% ready.
I pose that more as a journalist more than a
No,
hey,
just
this is
to
how I
ask.
feel.
Yeah, just to ask. So
I don't need y'all coming at me in the comments.
Look, like
please.
realistically, they're not going to drop Kimi.
No,
so like
not.
George, everybody's looking at it the same way as it makes the most sense. Like if they were to go the direction of Kimi or dropping Kimi, so to speak, or reserving Kimi and going George Max, that would be the most shocking outcome. I just don't see it because Kimi's he's just too damn good. Like, look, realistically, like he's just too damn good. Especially at 18 years old.
Yeah.
The things he's doing at 18. I remember when I was 18, there's no way I could imagine doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
No, not even close. So where does George go if Mercedes go with Max? The same question for Max if it doesn't end up with Mercedes. I think the only answer is Aston Martin.
Only answer is Aston Martin. And that's where he would get most money at either.
Well, yeah, I mean, Stroll would give him a bag. But
and then
Aston Martin have Adrian Newey. They're going to have a Honda power unit. The infrastructure there looks fantastic. I mean, Adrian Newey's even said it in interviews. Like, there's a couple of things that we're like a year or two away from being where we want to be. But everything that's happening at Silverstone at Aston Martin is state of the art and new, and the facilities are huge, and the team is huge. They're going to try to win championships soon. They don't sign Adrian Newey for $100 million if you're not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
So I think when push comes to shove, Lance Stroll go play tennis. You know what I mean? It's just going to be that way.
Or be our reserve.
Yeah. Well, like the investor backing is going to be like, look, Lawrence, your kid is not going to win us a championship.
And also
Fernando Alonso and
also,
Max Verstappen would be a hell of a line.
And also, this is Max Verstappen.
This is Max freaking Verstappen. So, like, let's see. What else was I trying to go with this? I had some other points, but the other question I wanted to ask, because this will always be about money. I mentioned about contracts already, but like from a leverage perspective, Mercedes could be utilizing this as, George, like we might have Max hanging in the wings. Like, you want to take a little bit less in a very specific deal? Let's say, because George, I think, has earned at least a 2-year deal extension.
I've seen a 1+1.
You've seen the 1+1, but that's not a confirmed thing.
Of course.
So like a 1+1 would be shocking. I think that George has done enough to earn himself a 2+1 at the least. That gives you the optional 3rd year. If it feels like it's going great, you're going to opt in. You walk into 2026, 2027, 2028, and you have options. So as far as Red Bull are concerned, I think maybe Max is looking at this and going, well, the car isn't great. Are you guys going to give me a massive bag to stay here? Or am I going to start looking elsewhere? Elsewhere being, I want to go win championships still. I want to redefine the record books, and maybe I'm going to go to Mercedes. That's another conversation too. But realistically, at the end of the day, and I know it's the boring answer, I would be surprised if Max is driving for Mercedes next year. If George Russell is not in this lineup, where does he go? I mean, Aston Martin would make the most sense. Because also, when you're thinking about Aston Martin, you think about a classic established British brand. So like he would be a huge immediate face for that brand as well. All it does is make sense. But if Max wants to redefine his legacy a little bit too, similar to like a Lewis Hamilton leaving McLaren scenario, going to Mercedes, at the time it was seen as crazy and ludicrous, but then Lewis went on to win 6 more drivers' championships, won 8 constructors. This could also be a move for Max that like, hey, if you're leaving Red Bull, go to Aston Martin. That could also be a huge career-defining, legacy-defining, F1 history-defining thing with the infrastructure that I've already mentioned. So